Hello, I will be starting a new series on unsolved true crime cases. Today we will be looking at 3 cases that have remained unsolved. Without further ado, let's get into the first story. On the evening of May 15th, 1988, 8-year-old Michaela Logan and her sister went to play in the basketball court of a park near their apartment in Greenwood, South Carolina. At around 8:15 p.m., she left on her bicycle and headed back home, which was just 300 yards away. Her bike was later found near the apartment office. Witnesses reported seeing a stranger nearby the basketball court shortly before Michaela vanished. He was described as white, blonde, and pockmarked. He was believed to be driving a dark, older model Chevrolet Monte Carlo. On October 1st, 1990, Michaela's remains were found in a wooded area on the U.S. Forest Service property in Newberry County. However, they were not positively identified till 1998, 10 years after she vanished. DNA testing confirmed her identity. It took 4 years for another break in the case. In November 2002, 50-year-old Charles Wade Hampton was charged with murder, abduction, and sexual misconduct in relation to this case. He confessed to Michaela's murder and the murders of at least 2 other people. However, he later recanted this claim. At the time, he was serving time for peeping Tom crimes. He had been suspected in this case since 1996. However, in June 2007, the charges against him were dropped. This is because of DNA testing ruled him out in one of the other murders, and investigators did not have any evidence to corroborate his confession to Michaela's murder. However, Hampton did plead guilty to obstruction of justice and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Prosecutors noted that they could charge him again if new evidence would have surfaced. On the night of June 5th, 1986, 4-year-old Jessica Gutierrez was asleep in her bedroom and her 2 sisters when she was abducted. It is believed that the unknown intruders had broken into the house through the living room window. The next morning, her mother, Deborah, discovered the scene. Papers were thrown across the bedroom floor and the front door was open. Jessica's 6-year-old sister claimed that she was taken by a man with a magic hat. Her family believes that she may have been abducted by a close friend of theirs. Despite this, the family friend that is believed to be the abductor was a 27-year-old man who served time in North Carolina for auto theft. The crime occurred just a few weeks after Jessica's disappearance. After his arrest, his fingerprints were matched to the prints outside the outdoor frame of her bedroom window. Deborah also found fibers in his car that she says were linked to Jessica. In 1987, the suspect told another inmate that he had kidnapped and murdered a young girl and dumped her body in a landfill in Lexington County. He said he would confess to the police if given immunity for the crime. However, immunity was denied and he did not confess to them. Interestingly, he said that he was wearing a cowboy hat when he abducted the child. This matched her sister's description of the abductor when she said he was wearing a weird hat. He has never been publicly identified or charged in this case. Jessica's father was a suspect at one point. However, he was able to prove that he was in California during the time of the disappearance and was cleared of all wrongdoing. Deborah's ex-boyfriend was also a potential suspect. When Jessica's sister was an adult, she was re-interviewed by the police. She told them that she remembered seeing her being lifted out of her bed by a man. He apparently did this without waking her. She was afraid to tell anyone about it at the time. It is uncertain whether or not she identified him. However, police believe that he was a family friend. This man is Thomas McDowell, and he is now considered to be the prime suspect of the case. In 2007, Deborah publicly accused investigators of mishandling the case. When she got into an argument with Sheriff Metz, he allegedly threatened to stop investigating it completely. Interestingly, Metz was later arrested on corruption charges. The nonprofit Unfinished Files picked up the investigation, working directly with Deborah in hopes of finding Jessica. In September 2021, local police and the FBI worked together to reinvestigate the case. As a result, on January 6, 2022, 61-year-old Thomas Eric McDowell was arrested and charged with Jessica's kidnapping and murder, along with burglary. He had previously served time on rape and burglary charges. A fingerprint found in the Gutierrez home was matched to him. A witness, who was believed to be her sister, identified him as the kidnapper from the photo lineup. He had also made statements to others that he had kidnapped and killed her. It is believed, but not confirmed, that he is a family friend identified by Deborah. The sad thing about this story is, which makes it unresolved, is Jessica's body has not been found yet. "21-year-old Chris Jenkins was a smart, popular business student at the University of Minnesota. He was the captain of the school's lacrosse team, and he grew up in Eden Prairie, Minnesota with his parents Steve and Jan and sister Sarah. On the night of October 31st, 2002, Chris dressed as a Native American and went with his girlfriend and another couple to a Halloween party at the Lone Tree Bar and Grill in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Around midnight, he was kicked out of the bar. He left behind his phone, wallet, and jacket. The bouncer watched him take a left on Hennepin Avenue. This was his last appearance. He was the first of several young male college students to vanish in the upper Midwest. 6 days later, on November 6, 22-year-old University of Wisconsin student Michael Knoll vanished after celebrating his birthday at a bar in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. 3 days after that, on November 9, 20-year-old Josh Goodman disappeared after leaving a small party at his apartment in Collegeville, Minnesota. All three vanished within a 100-mile radius of Minneapolis. All were white males around the same age, height, and weight, and all vanished during the night. It was theorized that a serial killer was targeting white young men in the area. On February 27, 2003, Chris's body was found in the Mississippi River between the 3rd Avenue Bridge and St. Anthony Falls. 1 month later, March 25th, Michael's body was found in a lake. Both were found not far from where they were seen. The FBI and local investigators ruled out a connection between their deaths and Josh's disappearance. An autopsy determined that Chris drowned and his blood alcohol level was well above the legal limit. The manner of death is still listed as unknown. However, the police theorized that his death was either an accident or they theorized that Chris was drunk and either accidentally fell or jumped from the nearby Hennepin Avenue Bridge into the river. They believed that he was upset after a fight with his girlfriend, and in 2004, the case was closed. However, Chris's parents did not believe it was a suicide. Instead, they thought he was murdered. They hired a private investigator to look into it. He noted that Chris did not have any injuries one would expect to find if he had fallen from a high bridge. His parents discovered discrepancies that suggested that his body was not in the river the entire time he was missing. They also claimed that the police did not handle the investigation well. They said initial investigators failed to interview people at the bar and did not treat the site where Chris's body was found as a crime scene. Retired detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte have looked into the drowning deaths of several young men along the Interstate 94 corridor in the Midwest. They took a look into Chris's death and discovered that the position of his body and other physical evidences indicated that he had not drowned accidentally. In 2005, the police received a tip about Chris's death. They located and questioned a man who was incarcerated on unrelated charges. He told them that he and another man accosted Chris on the Hennepin Avenue Bridge pedestrian walkway that night. He said that Chris was an easy target for a mugging because he was drunk. He said that his accomplice, angry that Chris had nothing of value on him, flung him into the river. In November 2006, the police reclassified Chris's death as a homicide. Chris's family, however, does not believe he was thrown from the bridge because he was still wearing his slip-on shoes, his shirt was tucked in, and the costume was still intact, and his arms were crossed. His family believed that he was forced into a van, driven around, and eventually murdered and dumped into the river. In 2005, a jailed man gave police a new lead regarding Chris's death. He claimed that Chris was a victim of an attempted robbery. In 2007, a suspect was identified in Chris's case. The Minneapolis Police Department presented the suspect's name to the county attorney, hoping that charges would be filed. However, the county attorney determined that there was not enough evidence to file charges. Police say that the person remains a suspect. Jeremy Lynn Alford was reportedly at the same bar as Chris on the night of his disappearance. Alford is currently serving time in prison for murdering Douglas Miller in 2005. He has refused to talk about Chris's case. The retired detectives, as previously stated, believe that Chris's death is linked to drowning deaths of more than 40 young men in 11 states. According to them, a smiley face was found painted near the crime scene. The detectives believe that this is the killer's signature, claiming responsibility for the deaths. Those are 3 true crime cases that have remained unsolved. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe as it does help the channel. And with that, see you next time.